Hi guys, in the previous video we got introduced to the canvas, specifically P5.js, and today we are going to be taking things a step further. We are going to be creating the project like an actual project using our templates, and we are going to be creating reusable components we can use across different frameworks and projects. The first thing we are going to do is to create a repository using our templates. We are going to give it any name of choice and select our template. Now it's all set up, we are going to be cloning the repository locally. Next, we are going to install all our dependencies and start our development server. We are going to proceed to create our home page, and we are going to add some basic markup. Next, we are going to be styling this similarly to what we have on the Figma design. We need to create a home file under our pages in the styles and import this into our index. I gave the home a minimum height and a background. I'm going to copy this base64 encoded font from a different project. That's the font we are going to be using. I'm going to style the heading, align it to the center, and add some padding to the top. Next, I'm going to create a component called P5 Canvas, and inside this component, I'm going to create a div and give it some basic styling so it's visible on our browser. And in the page, in the index page, I'm going to be using this component. Now we can see it's working. I'm going to also create a file for it where we are going to put all the styles and import it to the index. We are going to make this absolute and overlay it over the text. This is looking perfect. We are going to proceed by creating a component for the pills, and we are going to define some props that should be passed into the pill component, like the word itself, the background color, the text color, the location on the x-axis and the y, that's the coordinates, the angle of rotation and the width. For the markup, we are going to be showing this text, and we are going to be stringifying all the props and adding them as a data attribute to the tag so we can access that later using JavaScript. And we are going to be giving this some basic styling so it's not visible on the website. After we've done that, we are now going to create components for every one of our pills and put them under the P5 canvas. Now that we are done with our markup and styling, we are going to proceed with the functionality. We need to install our package P5. We are going to create an unmounted and initialize our P5. To initialize the P5, it requires two parameters. The first one is the function. We are going to create it and name it init, and we are going to pass it in. The second parameter is the parent element, so we are going to select our P5 canvas and pass it as the second element. In the init function, we are going to create a basic setup, P5.setup, and we are going to be creating our canvas, a 1080p canvas, and we are going to be giving it a transparent blue background. We need to go to the styling and make sure our canvas is properly covering the whole P5 canvas, and yeah, it's looking good. Let's quickly confirm we still have access to all the data for the pills. So we are going to select all the pill elements and log it on the console. And since we've confirmed we have access to the pill elements, we are going to create an array from the pill elements and map them. So we extract the data props attributes, and after extracting it, we parse the JSON, so we get back an object, and we are going to log this to confirm. And yeah, we still have access to all our data. Now we are done with the basic setup, so the next thing will be creating our P5 pills. And we pretty much did this in the previous project, so today we are going to be taking a different approach. We are going to look at the physics first. So for the physics library, we are going to be using Matter.js. Matter.js is a 2D physics engine for the web, and I'm sure you can already see where this is going. We are going to create interactive objects that obey the laws of physics using this library. So it's not just UI, we are going to create movable UI. So we need to install this package. Going over the documentation, the first thing we are going to need is the body, the matter.body. The matter.body is a module that contains methods for creating and manipulating rigid bodies. And a rigid body is basically a solid object. It's an object that is always together, so the distance between any 2 points in the object is always constant. Like a stone, anything where the distance between 2 points is always constant, it's called rigid. And we need this to create the pills because the pills are going to be rigid. Under where we created our pills array, we are going to proceed to create an objects array. The object array is basically going to hold all our objects. Since all our objects are going to hold so many properties and methods, we are going to create it as a class. So we need to create a class colored pill, and we need to map through all our pills and create a colored pill. In the constructor, we are going to take in the pill, and the first thing we are going to create is the rigid body using matter.bodies. Since it's a rectangle, we are going to use the rectangle method, matter.bodies.rectangle. It requires 4 parameters: the x coordinate, the y coordinate, the width, and the height. And we are going to store this in the body. And we're also going to store the other pill properties. To avoid any server-side errors because of the framework we are using, it is better to import our Matter and P5 when the component has already mounted. So we are going to use a dynamic import. Now we've created our body, but that's only the beginning. If you think about it, a body in space, it's not going to be as rigid as it's supposed to be when there are no constraints, where it's just floating. So we need to create our world just like Earth to give our object some sort of gravity. To create the world, we need to create the engine. The engine is basically our physics engine. It's going to be matter.engine.create, and the world is going to be our engine.world. We can view the composite as something that holds everything together. So we are going to create the composite, and we are going to add the world and the body to the composite. In the colored pill, we need a method, update. The update method is basically what runs at every frame. So anything it wants to show on the screen, anything it wants to send to the GPU to display on the canvas, it's going to be in this update function. The first thing is extracting the position of the body, which is body.position. Then we also need the current angle of the body and default this back to the angle of the pill. Then we need to set the angle mode depending on if it's from the body. If it's from the body, we'll set it to radian. If it's not, we'll set it to degrees. Then we need to create our group properly using the push. And we need to translate the group to the position of the body, so they are always in sync. We also need to set the rotation to the rotation of the body. We need the origin of the rect to be in the center instead of the top left, which it is by default. And we want to fill these with the background color. We want to create the rect. The coordinates are 0, 0, since the middle is the origin. And the width, we are going to use the width of the pill, but we are going to increase it slightly. For the height, we are going to use a static number for all the pills. And we need to give this some rounded corners. We are done with the rect. For the text, we need to reset the color to the pill color. We need to set the text size, the text weight, and align it in the middle horizontally and vertically. Finally, we want to input our text, which is the text in the pill, and the coordinates are 0, 0 since it's aligned in the center. And we pop to close our group. And in the draw function, we are going to run the update function every time the draw runs. So it basically calls this update function in the colored pill. And we can check it's finally displaying on the browser. Our draw is finally running perfectly, but our pills are not falling. It's not behaving like a rigid body because it's just hanging. The issue and the fix is we need to update the physics engine. We need to tell the physics engine to render at every frame. So in the draw, we are going to run the matter.engine.update and we are going to pass in our engine. And we can see it's running well now. It's reacting to gravity. It currently sends continuous images to the GPU and the GPU layers them above each other. So we need to clear the previous one every time we call the draw function. And now it's now working perfectly. It's reacting to gravity though, but it's on a free fall. It falls continuously because we don't have any plane or anything it can fall onto. So we need to create some sort of constraints. We need to create a plane. We could also create walls left and right. So we are basically setting boundaries. Before we create our boundaries, we also need to update the dimension of the canvas so it properly overlays on top of our heading, and we also need to remove the background. So we need to create our ceiling first. We are going to use a rectangle, matter.bodies.rectangle. Since the origin is in the center, we need to make the x coordinate half of the width. We need to make the y coordinate 50. We need to make the width of our P5, and we need to give it a height of 10. Now, if you just leave it this way, it's going to fall just like our pill, so we need to make sure it's a static object. And similarly, we need to do the same thing for our ground, our wall left, and our wall right. So the thickness is always 10 and the offset is 50. It will probably be easier to sketch this on Figma to get a proper imagination of the values to use, but I'll leave this to you. Now we can see that our boundaries are working perfectly and our pills are falling. The final thing left to do is to make the pills interactive so we can drag them around and play with them. But again, before we proceed, we also need to add some extra width to the body. To create the interaction, instead of allowing the user to drag them themselves, we are basically going to throw them whenever the user tries to drag. We are going to use a mouse dragged hook from P5. For all the pills, we want to check if the distance between the mouse and the body is less than 50. If it is, it means that it's most likely the object being dragged. I want to apply a force to it. The first parameter is the body, the second parameter is the current, and the third parameter is the target's x and y position. For this, we don't want it to be entirely static, so we want to give a random number between this and this. Our pills are dragging nicely now, and we finally have all the interactions done. It's been fun recreating this, and I already have many ideas of so many other things I want to do with P5 and Matter. I can't wait to see you on the next video. Bye.